Let's bring in our guy, Teddy Covers, coming to us live from Las Vegas, Nevada, to break down this big Monday nighter. Seahawks, Niners, coming off a very nice weekend from the looks that I saw you were on. Some of your big dogs were winning outright, Teddy. Teddy Covers, how are you doing on this Monday morning?
I'm doing pretty good this morning, Jimmy. No complaints here. The last 2 weekends have been solid. So that's what I like to, October wasn't forget it. October was a lousy month for me. There's no sugarcoating it. I stunk. I don't expect to do that all season, and the last couple of weeks have been a lot better.
Yeah, they have. And I ended up going 3-4 at NCAA football because I was making some of my own decisions. But I did back Iowa at plus the points and had some looks, and I feel fine about it at this point. But let's get into this Monday nighter. You had a great read in NFL on the Jets, and now we have the Seattle Seahawks Niners Monday nighter. I'm already on the over 46.5, but with Kittle's, and I don't know if we have official that Kittle's is going to be out. I was hoping that he was going to play it. Now it looks like he's not going to be in the lineup. I don't know if you have more information on that. The Niners opened up at -6.5. Now there's sixes across the board. Bet online still on the 6.5. This total opened up at 44.5. It went up to 48. It's come back down to 47.5. The Seahawks are giving up 278 yards per game through the air, 28th in the league. Now Schaub, in a game where they had a huge lead, Seahawks had a huge lead, and it sort of looked like Carroll didn't want his buddy Dan Quinn fired, and so 460 yards from Matt Schaub. Maybe you can put a line through that. Jameis Winston last week threw for 335 against them. The 49ers aren't going to have Quan Alexander, sadly, but they're getting McGlinchey, we think. They're getting Juszczyk, and they're getting Joe Staley back. San Francisco first in the NFL, stopping the pass, but just 14th against the run. And Seattle just put 145 yards up against Tampa, which had the best rush defense in the league. Carson was the first rusher all year to break 100 against the Bucs. But I'm starting to get a little cold feet with the Kittle's injury. Let's see what Teddy Covers is doing with this big Seahawks-Niners game this evening.
Oh, this one's easy for me. No-brainer. I'm on San Francisco. I considered a large bet on San Francisco, and I only made a standard-sized bet on the 49ers tonight. We've got bet on and bet against in this game. And I fully understand the track record of Russell Wilson and Pete Carroll as road underdogs on the road. Those two have been great. Well, I don't know, 17-4 the last 21. They haven't lost a game by more than a touchdown on the road the last 2 years. I understand that. I've watched them. Okay. I'm betting the 49ers anyway. And this is why. You talked about the three guys they're getting back. Right tackle, left tackle, fullback. You can't find me a more underrated trio when it comes to the betting market than your two offensive tackles and your fullback when they're out and when they're back. All right, the markets move about 0 points on that trio, and San Fran just got at least a field goal better. Okay? And when you talk, legitimately, maybe more than that. Those are three impact players for the 49ers offense. And the 49ers offense is really good to begin with. And Shanahan is coaching circles around people. He's play calling. Shanahan's play calling this year has been the best in the NFL, period, bar none. Reich maybe second, Indy maybe second. Not with Hoyer behind QB. But, so we have bet on San Fran. And we have an elite team at home on Monday Night Football with a national audience coming off a shoddy showing, laying less than a touchdown. I'm interested in those situations. Then we look at the Seattle side of the equation, all right? You talked about all the yards they gave up and then all the yards they gave up, and we kind of find, oh, well, this and oh, well, that. I don't look at the aggregate numbers. I'm interested in yards per play on defense. And the difference between the 49ers defense and the Seahawks defense is 1.7 yards per play. That's an enormous differential. It's not even close. All right. The reason Seattle ran for 100 yards against Tampa last week is Tampa had 5 rookies playing in the secondary. All right. The Bucs defense is not now what it was a month ago, and not even close when it comes to injuries. So Seattle had they ran the football. They still got torched by Jameis Winston. They still got torched by Matt Schaub, and they're going to get torched by Jimmy G tonight. I do not trust Seattle's defense. I could give 2 hoots about the track record this year and years past on the road. This is an elite team. This is a Super Bowl contender ready to make a statement on Monday Night Football. I want the home favorite in this one.
The home favorite, if I gave you a free $500 bet on the total, would you be going over or under this total right now at 47.5?
That's an interesting question. And it wouldn't matter if it was a free $500 bet, a free $100 bet, a free $2,000 bet. I still have the same thought process, Jimmy. The amount of the free bet doesn't matter. I don't have any strong take on this total. I believe in the 49ers defense. I believe in the 49ers offense. And that makes it difficult for me to get involved total-wise here. I guess the slightest, I don't trust Seattle's defense at all, and I do think that Russell Wilson may connect on a couple of plays. So slightly into the over. I guess free bet, that's the way it would look.
Questions coming in. First off, Don Ricci gave a stat earlier, said the 49ers are holding teams to about 5% of offensive production. So that's an unreal stat that is held for the last 3 games. Seattle might be the only team who might have some success, but I lean under. That's from Don Ricci. Devin Wade says, Jimmy, what do you and Teddy think about late line moves on over-under totals? Do we fade the public or follow the line move? Last night, Vikings-Cowboys game total went from 48 to 47.5 just before kickoff. What do you think of those late market moves right before kickoff, Teddy?
So I've been thinking a lot about this over the course of the weekend. I really have. I spent some time, just trying to think. I'm seeing so much on Twitter. I'm getting so many questions here and in other places talking about line moves and reverse line moves. And this is my advice. Take the line moves and get them out of your head. Sharp, square, doesn't matter. Handicap the game and don't worry about the line moves. Okay? It's not an issue of, this line move means this and that line move means that and the other line move. Every line move is different. Every line move is random in the sense of it's just coming from, it's all about money, and it's all about the bigger syndicates and the bigger bets that they put in. And again, the bigger syndicates and the bigger bets they put in are looking to cash 54, 55% of the time. It's not a huge high expectation wager. It's really hard for me to understand. I do understand because I was in your spot 20 years ago. Absolutely. When I was just learning how to cap, I spent a lot of attention. Who does the public like? Who do the recreational bettors like? And who do the sharps want? And I wanted to be on the sharp side of all the games. It's not going to increase your winning percentage a whole lot. It really isn't. Maybe a little bit, maybe a point or two. If you want to win, handicap the games. Have good handicaps of the games, and you'll win. If you're trying to make picks based on, I think this line moved here and that, what does this line move mean? Doesn't mean anything. It's a bunch of static. It's not going to help you win games. End of statement.
No,
that's what I thought about.
I absolutely love hearing that. I love hearing that because that's part of the reason why my guy David Stewart doesn't like a move I made in NBA, and I want to talk about that next, is because of the amount of money, even though the bets are 50-50, more money is bet on one side. Is that different? Is that different than what we just spoke about?
There are a handful of times where I'll be concerned enough about a lot. Again, if you're missing it's one thing if you're missing the best of the number. If you're like, all right, I like them at -5 and now it's -6.5, you shouldn't bet them at -6.5. You missed the best of the number. But if you're saying, I don't have an opinion on them at 5, but now that it's 6.5, I don't know which way to go because the line moved and there should I be betting against the move or with the move? Yeah, sometimes you should be betting against the move and sometimes you should be betting with the move. There's no right answer to that. There really isn't. So when it comes to, and the NBA, God, again, the syndicates are firing on every game every day. Okay. And at the end of the season, they're going to add it all up, and they're going to hit 54 and 54.5%. They're going to make a boatload of money doing that, hitting 54.5%. But to make a move or not make a move based on what some syndicate in Taiwan is doing or some syndicate, it's not. There are better ways to handicap, in my opinion. And I think I'm going on and on about this. I'm not even sure I answered your question, Jimmy. I'm getting sidetracked here.
Oh, it's all good. It's all good. It was just the situation with Dave Stewart was about this total in this Jazz-Warriors game. So the way I have handicapped the Jazz-Warriors game, let's move on to NBA, is that the Warriors are going to try to run the Jazz down. Run them like crazy. Get Gobert running. Get Conley running. Run. And that's going to leave the Warriors susceptible to bad bad perimeter defense, which they already have the worst perimeter defense in the league. And I think that they're going to be sprinting so much down the floor offensively that they're going to be out of position defensively. The Jazz are led by Bogdanovich and Mitchell, and they have a 37.6% three percentage. So I think that this is going to go over the 210.5. It's gone down a point from the 211.5 it opened. I think it's going to go over because of that. And David Stewart's dislike of the play was that the tickets are 50-50 on the total, but 85% of the money is on the under.
I wouldn't even worry about that a little bit. I wouldn't even pay attention to that stuff. It's not going to help you win. If you want to figure out how to win with the Warriors and the Jazz total, figure out the pace they're going to play and the percentage they're going to shoot at and whether they're going to be a lot of fouls tonight or not. This is your best way to and okay, the answer of the question of when it comes to an NBA total, do I want to be with that move or against that move? In general, especially early in the season, the totals market is pretty darn sharp in the NBA. Now, that's not always the case as the season progresses, but early in the season, those initial line moves off the total, they tend to be pretty good. All that said, the first bet off this total was bet up. Opened to 11.5, got bet up to 213. It's been trickling down all morning. So there's two-way action on this game in that sense. And it's not, all the money went this way. And there was definitely a group that bet over. There's definitely a group that bet under. I don't trust the Jazz offensively right now. I really don't. I understand that everything that I thought they would be more cohesive initially with Conley at the point, and Utah's offensive flow has been very hit or miss. I'm not excited about the Jazz right now, and their defensive stats are through the roof. Through the roof, Utah's are. I mean, they're as good as any in the NBA. So what you're seeing for the Jazz with those strong defensive numbers is you're seeing a bent towards unders, like we're getting under money tonight. And you're seeing Utah, in my mind, being power rated a little bit higher than they should be because they're not in midseason form yet. It's very clear. If you've been watching the Jazz through the first 10 games of the season, they're not as good as they're going to be. As for Golden State, I mean, the Warriors are going to do what they're going to do right now, and that's run up and down the floor and jack up a bunch of shots. D'Angelo Russell could go to 70 tonight. Who knows? Any given game, that guy might go off. I don't have a strong take on the total. Good luck.
What moves are you making in NBA this evening?
I made one move in the NBA this evening, and I think that line, I got 10.5 in my pocket, and it's gone. I took 10.5 with Toronto against the Clippers. I understand that they're going up against Kawhi. I understand that they don't have Ibaka. I understand they don't have Lowry. I also understand they've been sitting in L.A. in their hotel room after beating the Lakers the other night without those two guys. And the Clippers, who were winning games by margin, last time the Clips won a game by this margin was well before Halloween. So I thought the 10.5 was too much. And I will often back a team after a key injury or two until they come back to earth. And we saw from Toronto, nothing but bet on without Lowry and Ibaka the other night. I wouldn't be surprised if we see more of that this evening against their old buddy Kawhi. So I took the points with the Raptors. The 10.5s are gone. Even at 10, I think it's still worth a look.
I'm on the Raptors first quarter at +3. Clippers haven't played since Thursday evening. So my cap is different, but it correlates with yours. I just think the Clippers have been off for too long. I do not think the Clippers care about playing Toronto. Toronto cares about playing the Clippers. As you said, no travel last night, feeling good about themselves. Van Fleet going off. And I think that early they'll be sharp. So I'm on first quarter +3. I had a chance to get it for show purposes at +3.5 about 2.5 hours ago. But on SBR odds, it said that Bet365 was at +3.5, and I kept refreshing Bet365, and I was like, okay, maybe it's coming. I kept waiting, and then when I checked this morning, like down at the show, it was all threes, so mistake. But +3 -103. I'm also on the Raptors first quarter. There you have it. Teddy on the Raptors full game. Oh, yes, Teddy?
I was going to jump in about the live odds feed. Look, the SBR live odds feed is a great product, and I encourage. Again, I would have that open literally all day. But for being a great product, it's not perfect, and there are oftentimes they're going to be a stale feed or a books feed doesn't work right, and you're seeing a 3.5, you're like looking on your phone, where the hell's a 3.5? It does happen. That doesn't diminish the product. It just means that sometimes there's the feeds don't work right. So I encourage you to continue to using SBR odds page, and once in a while that will happen, unfortunately.
Yeah, once in a while. Yeah, I know. I keep this open all day, every day. It's the only thing that's always open on my computer.
Yep.
And but I was just I just made a mistake. I thought it was going in one direction, and I would love to have a 3.5 in my pocket right now, but I'm sitting with a 3 instead, which is it is what it is. Okay, so there's the NBA and NFL breakdowns from our Teddy covers, and then we get into college football. And let me pull up what happened for me this past weekend. 3-4, disappointing. I made a couple of things that kind of ate at me. Maryland, it went up to 44, and I took it, and that was just a terrible way to start out my Saturday morning. Then I was on Iowa plus 8.5. Baylor minus 2.5. Was fortunate that Baylor covered. Lucky there. I took the Penn State, Minnesota under 48, which was bad. Then I jumped on 2 small schools with Raven in the desert. I took Sam Houston State minus 3.5. They won by like 20. But I also took Idaho State plus 10, and they lost by like 30. And then my late night game, I was 3-3 going into it. I was on the under 77.5 in San Jose State, Hawaii. And after that third quarter, they needed to score 28 points in the fourth to get me off, and it was a tight game. It was actually sort of the way I was hoping it would become. And then I lost it with that touchdown with a minute left in the game. Disappointing. So I went 3-4. How did your weekend bang out?
Pretty good. I had a good weekend for myself. I had a good week for the clients. With the plays that we talked about on the show last week, I don't know if it was good. Oregon State wasn't good. Temple was. Wake wasn't good. Minnesota was. LSU was good. Iowa was good. And I had my moral equivalent of Maryland with Vanderbilt, which was a wrong side from the get-go. And it's worth noting, a few years back, I went back and looked at my track record in college football, and you go back and I went back and looked at our 5-year sample size. I'm like, my biggest leak was underdogs of 14 points or more. The big dogs was something that apparently I was attracted to, and that I don't win with those bets the same size at the same percent at a percentage that was any good. So with the 5 years, so I really, after that, like last year and this year, I really have tried to avoid taking the bigger dogs. That's not what I see best. Somehow I talked myself into Vandy. That was not a right side, but a profitable weekend overall.
It was, and you also let us know when you took LSU that you had money line as well in your pocket. Yeah. So that was a nice, big, juicy score. It was a great cap all around, and the dogs that you were on were spectacular. They were spectacular. Minnesota was so strong, and Iowa. You were on dogs that were very, very strong, and it was a great week of capping. And I have had questions coming in already. I even had our Paco Healy tweet me a question early this morning. So people excited about throwing questions your way, Teddy. Everyone's seeing that you're on the heater. But first, we need to start off with what have you already jumped on as of Monday in this NCAA football week?
We made 5 bets last night and this morning so far. And there's 4 more I'm going to make, but I'm waiting on lines. I expect to make. I shouldn't say that. I'm waiting on numbers. Let's start with betting number 313, North Carolina plus 5. Every game the Tar Heels plays for a field goal, by a field goal, and this is a huge game for them for bowl eligibility. I think the North Carolina is very live at Pitt. Pitt's not the team I want to lay with. The Tar Heels plus 5, I wasn't sure that line would hold. I'm still baffled by this number, and I really thought it would shoot this morning, and it hasn't. San Diego State, I laid 1.5 with the Aztecs. Against Fresno. That's Friday night. I don't think Fresno's any good. And I think San Diego State is good. And I'm surprised by this number. I know the Aztecs did not play their best game this past Saturday by any stretch of the imagination. But I thought, from a defensive standpoint, there's no comparison between these two teams. I took San Diego State betting number 318 minus 1.5. Betting number 325, Indiana, I found a 14.5 with the Hoosiers, and I put that in my pocket. I wasn't sure. I didn't think I was going to find another 14.5 with Indiana against Penn State. You can't love the spot for Penn State here, coming off the loss All Indiana's done is win games to cover point spreads real quietly under the radar. They're like Minnesota light in that regard. I took the Hoosiers plus, and you know already, betting number 335. I went right back to the well with Minnesota +3, and I know the money. I took the 3. The initial line moved down to, I thought they were going to go to 2.5. Now it looks like there may be Iowa money. Iowa's not better than Minnesota, flat out. And Iowa's offense is a lot worse than Minnesota's, and everyone's like, "Oh, Minnesota, this is their." I have the better team catching points. That's a wager I'm very interested in. And the spot, they're going to go crazy about the spot. Minnesota's good. Minnesota's better than Iowa. +3 in my pocket. And last but not least, we're getting back to the well with Central Michigan +3. That line's, there's still a couple of 3s out there. That's actually split. But I took Central +3, betting number 339. They're at Ball State. I think they're better than Ball State. And certainly in the trenches, they're better than Ball State. So I took the Chippewas +3 in that. So Tar Heels, Aztecs, Hoosiers, Gophers, Chippewas. That's the 5 that I've already put in my pocket.
I like it. Before we jump into the games that you are close to adding, this was the question that was sent to me this morning from our Paco Healy, who's in the chat. Says, Jimmy, good morning, my friend. Wanted to see if you could ask about SDSU laying 1.5 at home, hosting Fresno State. So this is exactly the fact that you're on it is perfect for this, because he said lots of Mountain West implication. The Aztecs coming off a loss. Number looks short. Would love to hear his breakdown. We'll be at work today, so might be in and out of the chat. Want to hit you up early? Thanks, brother, and have a blessed week. And you already touched on it. You are backing the Aztecs, Paco's Aztecs, come Friday evening.
Yeah, I thought it was... again, my number for the game. Let me get my number for the game here. There were a couple of games where my numbers were way off the market. And a couple of them I didn't bet. But this is one where, my number was San Diego State -4. An open 1.5. And I'm on the right side of the field goal there. I thought, again, it was... And really, I thought my power rating for San Diego State is a notch low. I could have easily made this number 6. So, yes, I like the Aztecs. I think they're... And defensively, there's no comparison between these two teams. And no problem taking San Diego State off a loss.
I love it. I love it. Okay, we have more questions coming in, but first, let's hear what you are close to getting to the window with.
So I'm tempted by the Lobos, New Mexico. They're at +27, +27.5. I'm not going to take them at less than 4 touchdowns. But betting number 347 is on my radar this week. Boise cannot be trusted to cover as home chalk, and this is not a game they're going to be interested in. Betting number 353, Wyoming. I'm waiting for a 7. When I see a 7, I expect to pounce on Wyoming. It's 6.5 right now. If I don't see a 7, I may not get there. We'll see. Market's very concerned about Wyoming's backup quarterback. It's not like Sean Chambers was any good, and the backup was just fine this past weekend. So there's not a significant drop-off. The markets have made a big adjustment for Wyoming quarterback injury. My adjustment is much smaller than the market. So I'm looking at Wyoming. I'm waiting for the 7. Betting number 362, Cal, +6.5. That's another one I'm going to wait for the 7. Monster was good. All right. Cal's problem's been a quarterback problem. Off the bye, again, and maybe he wasn't right. Maybe he makes a mistake or two. But I know this. USC is not a team I want to lay points with. They got there against Arizona State. If you watched that game and you had USC in your pocket, you know how stressful and frustrating it was in a game they should have won by 10 touchdowns. And they're just not, I've never seen it. Not never. You rarely see a team shoot themselves in the foot as much as USC does. I'm going to look at Cal if I find the +7. And last but not least, betting number 377. And there's 7 starting to pop up. This is one I might get to the window. I should get to the window with soon after the show. I was waiting for a 7 for Texas. Iowa State... Whatever. We want Herman as a dog, and this point spread, I like Iowa State. You guys know I like Iowa State. This point spread's wrong. It's too high. Texas can't be getting too much. There's not that big a difference, and it's not like Iowa State didn't just go all in this past weekend. My number on the game came 4. At 7, I'm interested. So those are four looks that I expect to make, given if I get the line I'm looking for. And again, like the Texas 7s are popping up. I will put one of those in my pocket today.
I love it. I absolutely love it. Tons of questions coming in. We know the 5 looks that Teddy's already on. We also know the 4 looks that he's close to getting on, and it's a fun way to start the week. Thank you for the heads up there, Teddy. Okay, questions coming in. The first question from Jeremy Williams, rotation number 323, 324, Tulane Temple. Tulane opening up at -3.5. They're still there at Pinnacle, but 4s everywhere else. And that's what Teddy is thinking, that's what Jeremy's thinking about, is backing Tulane -3. What do you think of this spot?
So my number came a little shorter. My number came 2. And my initial reaction is to look at the home dog in this game. We talked about it before the Temple USF game. What happened when Temple played the 3 best teams in the conferences in 3 straight games was their season-long stats took a real hit, a big hit. Then we saw them play an offense that they could handle last week, and you saw what happened. They dominated the game. The basket, but they dominated the game. Now they're facing a Tulane team. They're fast. Tulane's got the speed edge, but Temple's got a pretty big defensive edge in this game. I would lean in their direction initially.
An initial lean towards Temple. We have questions coming in fast and furious. I am copying and pasting them. We're going to go in order. Arthur Mead Jr., our friend Arthur Mead Jr., has a couple of games he wants you to talk about. First off, rotation number 383, 384 here. Trying to find it on mine. Here we go. Is Memphis Houston. He said...
Memphis Houston.
Yeah, he's asking about the Kentucky game, so he just had the rotation number wrong. He's asking about 385, 386, Kentucky -8.5 at Vanderbilt. And he's wondering if he should be backing Kentucky at this 8.5. Bookmakers dropped it to 8. Kentucky, Vanderbilt, Teddy.
Well, I mean, Kentucky found a way to lose this past weekend in really frustrating fashion for anyone that had them in that ball game. Stopped twice at the goal line in the fourth quarter. My number came 14.5. That said, so that clearly says I'm looking at the Kentucky side. That said, when I have a bottom feeder and somehow I get involved in the game with that bottom feeder and then they get destroyed, I make sure to adjust my power rating so I'm never tempted to take that bottom feeder again for the rest of the year. So I made a significant adjustment to Vanderbilt. And that's why the number is as high as it is. I know I don't want Vanderbilt in this game. But is the Kentucky side a side I'm excited about laying a price with? No. Pass. This is not a game I expect to be involved with.
We have a pass. The next spot on the card that Arthur asking about, rotation number 379, 380, TCU, Texas Tech. Texas Tech opening up at -1 at Pinnacle. Now TCU is 2-point favorites at Pinnacle. And Arthur Mead wondering if he should be backing TCU here.
My power rating number came TCU -1.5. TCU has been a home-road dichotomy team. A pretty sharp home-road dichotomy team that makes me somewhat reluctant to lay a price on them on the highway. But on the other side of the equation, Texas Tech is a team that we trust against bottom feeders. It's a team we trust against bad defenses. It's not a team that we feel the same way about when they play good defenses. TCU does have it. They've got a solid stop unit. So this game feels like the game TCU is in this past weekend, where someone's going to win. Maybe it goes to overtime. I expect a close game. This is not a game where I'm likely to get involved, at least initially.
Next question comes in from Paul Costa. Paul says, well, first, we're talking about rotation number 357, 358, 25th ranked Navy up against 15th ranked Notre Dame. Paul says, Jimmy, could you please ask Teddy later about the Notre Dame and Navy game? Was feeling Notre Dame -10, but the line has already moved to -8. Am I missing something?
If you like Notre Dame, take Notre Dame. Don't worry. Don't let the line moves freak you out. And now you're getting a better number on Notre Dame than you were a couple hours ago, which is always a positive sign. When it comes to the matchup itself, the Irish haven't exactly had an easy time with Navy in recent years. And the Middies are on a little bit of a run right now. and they're getting attention from the betting markets as a result. So I'm not surprised at all that this number got bet down off the opener. All that said, my powering number is 14 for these two teams. I think Notre Dame is a good notch or two better than Navy. I want to do some reading this week and see what the focus level's like against this particular opponent before I get involved in the game.
Next question comes in from Nilo. Nilo talking about rotation number 399, 400. 16th ranked Wisconsin at Nebraska. Wisconsin opening up at -12. Now 13.5's on the board. A 14 sitting here. What do you think about 14 at Bovada? What do you think of this spot, Wisconsin, Nebraska?
I mean, in theory, Wisconsin is supposed to smack this team. I mean, I've given Nebraska more than one chance this year, and they have not they have not lived up to expectations, made any type of improvements, gotten their act together. It's a difficult team for me to get to the window with again, and it's a difficult team for many in the betting markets to get to the window with. Hence, this point spread being where it is. My number's 15 on the game. I'm not, when it comes to Wisconsin at this stage of the season, you're not getting a team that's undervalued. I love teams that are undervalued in November. I'm looking for teams like East Carolina that no one's paying attention to. And you know what? What they were in September and October is not the way they're playing right now. And you can make money with teams like that down the stretch. When you're talking about, Wisconsin, as we saw, with Iowa, the game that they were in control, they're not built to, I'm not a Cone fan, I guess is what it comes down to. The offense isn't balanced. When they can't run, they can't win. And then again, they may be able to run the ball down Nebraska's throat this week. My number came higher for what it's worth.
Hal Abraham's up next, asking about tomorrow night's spot 301-302, Eastern Michigan versus Akron. Eastern Michigan opening up at -17. What does Teddy think about Eastern Michigan laying 17 to Akron tomorrow night?
No. I don't want either side. I don't want Akron. Some point Akron's going to cover a point spread maybe. But when you have teams in November that haven't covered a point spread all year, they're no longer overvalued commodities. All right. Eastern Michigan's not built to blow teams out. They're not explosive offensively. They're not in the midst of a good season. But if you're taking a play, if you're betting on the Zips, you're betting on one of the very worst teams in college football, and you pay the price for taking those teams. If you take your UMasses of the world, that's what happened. It's not a game I'm going to. I can tell you flat out, I'm not playing this game. My number came 19.
The Woj in the house says, Jimmy, my man, can you please ask Teddy about Michigan State rotation number 387, 388. Michigan opening up at -14.5. Now 14's on the board.
Yeah, my number's 15. I doubt I play the game. Because if I doubt I play the game. This is a Monday morning, me thinking about it, and I thought about it a little bit last night, but I'm thinking it again. I want Michigan against weak defensive teams, not against strong defensive teams. And Michigan State's a strong defensive team. That being said, you want to talk about a devastating loss. That was a pretty devastating loss. And it happened the same way that Sparty's been losing games all year. Not in the sense of, they've been up 28-3 and the defense collapses, but in the sense of this team can't move the football when they have to, and the offense make mistakes. The Lewerke pick six to it was 31-24. They missed extra point to make it 31-30. But that's the type of throw that you bench quarterbacks for. That's not what you expect from your seniors. So it's hard for me to get there with Sparty right now. But it's not like Michigan laying 2 touchdowns against their arch rival is a great value. Oh yeah, easy play on the Wolverines. No, it's not, especially because nobody wants Michigan State this week. Again, not a game I'm likely to be involved with. Certainly nothing that I've got a strong take on Monday morning.
Let's move on to Rod Zawacki. Rod Zawacki asking about number 6 ranked Georgia and number 12th ranked Auburn. Georgia sitting at 2.5 at Pinnacle. 3's on the board everywhere else.
That's it. Interesting game, an interesting point spread, isn't it? Doesn't that number look a little cheap? The markets are saying that Auburn's going to hang here. I wouldn't be surprised about. Again, Georgia offensively has not lived up to expectations, especially when they face good defense. It's the Tigers team with extra time to prep. I think they might be live home dogs here. My initial reaction was to look at Auburn plus the points. I don't know that I get there, and I wouldn't at 2.5. But if this line ticks up, I will probably be looking at the Auburn side here.
All right, more questions coming in. We've already hit the Texas Tech TCU game that Rod wanted to ask about. So the third on his list is 397, 398, number 2 ranked Alabama and Mississippi State. Alabama opening up at minus 19.5, now 20.5 in the 21 at Bovada. Teddy, what's your take on Alabama, Mississippi State?
I'll say this. I don't want Mississippi State. Okay? So it's an Alabama or pass. I want to read some quotes, see how focused they are, see if it's a bubble burst or see if it's a we're going to go in and throttle this team. If it's a we're going to go in and throttle this team, Alabama might be cheap this week. You know, if Bama's A game, Mississippi State's not going to compete with that. But I need to know Bama's going to bring their A game and not be a bubble burst, and let's see if we can get out of town with a win and not get upset again. I want to be darn sure of that before I get to the window laying this price with the Crimson Tide. So there's some reading I want to do in this game. Initial lean is definitely towards Alabama. Mississippi State's, I don't think is necessarily good enough to compete here.
Next spot comes from Eddie Euler. Eddie Euler talking about rotation number 403, 404, Stanford, Washington State. Eddie Euler says, Teddy, thoughts on Stanford plus 10.5? The Cougars haven't been impressive. I cashed with Cal on Saturday. What do you think of this spot, Stanford plus 10.5?
The Cougars have been lousy. You know, you've been on Washington State. You have not enjoyed their last, what are they, 1-4, their last 5 or something? It wasn't pretty. All that said, I think some of that was bet on Cal. I'm not convinced of that, but the Bears are a team that, like I said, they were on my short list already for this next week. I think some of Wazoo's struggles may have been Cal. And Stanford's in the midst of a miserable season too, and they just lost to Colorado. They scored 13 points against Colorado. All right, with their starting quarterback back. You know, Stanford's a mess. I'd probably be more likely to take Wazoo than I would Stanford. I think because Wazoo can score, Stanford can't. You know, flat out. But not a game I expect to play. My number came 9.5.
Back to that Georgia-Auburn spot, Vincent Hawkins thinking about taking the under in the Georgia-Auburn game. Have you got a number from Vegas for the total?
Yeah, what's the betting number on the game?
371, 372, Georgia-Auburn.
45.5 is what I'm seeing at Circa right now.
45.5, and our Vincent Hawkins thinking about the under. Would that be an angle that you would support?
So at gut reaction, we like these defenses a lot. However, these defenses, both of them, are capable of making plays and scoring by themselves. And I get very reluctant with totals under, and usually about 7 touchdowns is my range. You know, we start to get in the upper 40s and into the 50s. I don't worry about it as much. But at like 48 and under, I really worry about playing unders when I have defenses and special teams that can create scores. And these are defenses and special teams that can both create scores. So I understand the thought process. But I worry a little bit about the big plays and probably won't play the under as a result. And I don't play a ton of unders in college football. I don't. I mean, unders are where the worst beats, all the worst beats come on unders in any sport. You know, the ones that make you crazy, the ones that eat you and eat you from the inside, the ones you can't sleep at night. Mostly unders, you know, a lot of unders like that. And that's where, and so part of my, and it's not, maybe not the optimal strategy, but part of my strategy to keep myself sane is a lot of times I stay off unders like this one.
Understandable. Yeah, the toughest losses are unders, no doubt about it.
Am I wrong, Jimmy?
No, man. But I get this sick pleasure out of hitting them. It's funny because over is when you see an overcome, you're like, yeah, I kept that right. There's going to be offense. But for some reason, when the under hits and it's just a defensive showdown, I get this pleasure out of it that I don't get with overs for whatever
reason. And then you end up with the TCU game in triple overtime.
Oh.
Oh, that was tough. Anyone that had that on, I'm sorry, anyone that had that game under, that was the worst beats come with unders. They do.
No doubt about it. No doubt about it. A question here from AM about me posting the grading page. I will do that right now. But let's thank Teddy Covers for sharing all his hard work and insights with us. So far, he's locked in North Carolina +5, San Diego State, and I believe, was that a -1 or 1.5?
1.5. I didn't get the 1. I got 1.5.
-1.5. Indiana +14.5. Minnesota +3. Central Michigan +3. He is close to backing New Mexico +27.5. He will back Wyoming +7 if he can get it. Cal at +6.5 and Texas at +7. Those are 4 bets that he's close to getting to the window with. We will ask him tomorrow when he joins us. We also know he's backing the San Francisco 49ers this evening on Monday Night Football. Also backing my Raptors +10.5. I'm on them first quarter +3. Teddy Covers, thank you so much for joining us. Follow this man. If you are not following him on Twitter, follow him. He's a great follow. Teddy_Covers. Thank you for starting your week with us on Betting with the Bag. We have Teddy Covers every morning here on this show. Thank you so much, Teddy. I hope this is the start of another successful week for you.
Well, thank you so much, Jimmy. It's the first thing I do Monday morning is come here on the show, man. So it's enjoyable. Just to note, I'm not playing New Mexico at +27. I'm not playing Wyoming at +6.5. I'm not playing Cal at +6.5. I'm not playing Texas at +6.5. Those are all games I'm waiting for the number. So I get the 7s and the 28s and the like. I'm waiting around the key numbers for all of those. So the 5 I have bet. The other 4, we will patiently wait till the numbers that we're looking for.
Much love to you, Teddy, and we will keep an eye on the books to make sure that you get that number. And thank you so much for joining us. There he is, Teddy Covers. You can catch him here again tomorrow morning and every morning, Monday to Friday on this show.